waste aerosols considered to be hazardous waste? Well, if you've taken RCRA in the past, RCRA class in the past, you know that first something has to be a waste, so you're going to discard it, but then you also have to see not only is it a waste, but does it meet the conditions to be a hazardous waste? So, right, not all of your aerosol cans will be hazardous waste. So, what makes it a hazardous waste? Well, let's talk about the ingredients first. So, in the regulations, there are different listings. The F-listed and K-listed waste are for things that have been used or spent, and they've gone through some sort of process. Whereas, as I have on the screen, the P and U codes are for unused commercial chemical product. Now, the first thing I want to be careful about with you is for you to understand what we mean by unused. If you take an aerosol can and you use it, and we spray some, but we have some left behind, and now we're going to dispose of it, that is considered to be unused because what is left behind was never used for its intended purpose. So be careful about that. And then we have to see what are the contents. And if the contents are a product, a mixture, a formulation, it would receive one P or U code based on the sole active ingredient of the material. How are you going to know the sole active ingredient if there is even a sole active ingredient? Well, most of the time you can turn the can around and just read the ingredients and it will tell you what's active and inert, okay? Or an SDS, a safety data sheet. The other way that something can be a hazardous waste is, does it exhibit one or more of the 4 characteristics? And those are ignitability, corrosivity, reactivity, and toxicity. And very often our propellants are ignitable, all right? Okay, so let's look at the listed waste codes here. Up on the screen, I have little snippets of the P codes and the U codes. Now, it is actually important to know whether your material is a P or a U listing. Keep this in mind. This is going to come back around. The P-listed hazardous wastes are acutely hazardous. That means that they're very nasty. And that means that in small doses, they're immediately and extremely harmful to humans. And that's why they're on the list. So those are the nasty things. And then the materials that are listed on the U list are listed for being toxic. And what we mean by that is that it is harmful to humans, or for other reasons. They're on the list because they're ignitable or corrosive. For example, can you see on the screen down towards the bottom, the second to last entry for acetonitrile? That's listed for being ignitable and toxic. There's an I and a T there, right? So again, P listed are acutely hazardous, keep that in your mind, and U listings are for being toxic or for other reasons. Then we have some examples here for you of things that might be a listed hazardous waste, a P or U. We have some flammable propellants. I wrote down a list here of some of the flammable propellants here for you. The flammable propellants are mostly ignitable, right? They can be things like butane, propane, that type of thing, right? Our solvents, acetone, methanol, certainly pesticides, and keep in mind that many of your pesticides are P-listed acutely hazardous waste. Not all of them, but many of them are. And then your typical cleaning products as well, right? So any of these could have a P or a U listed waste code. Then we have the characteristics, and the characteristics are ignitability, corrosivity, reactivity, and toxicity. So, for example, very, very common are spray paints. Almost everybody uses spray paints at some point. And the paints can actually be ignitable because they have solvents in them. And although this seems a little odd to me, it is true that there are some paints that are actually considered to be corrosive. Go figure, right? Lubricants are a big one. Also ignitable. Remember, ignitability is something that is a liquid that has a flash point of less than 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And some of your degreasers and adhesives, even spray adhesives, are actually corrosive. So these things pose a characteristic of hazardous waste, right? Okay, so now we know that we have an aerosol and it is a hazardous waste, meaning the contents or the propellant are a listed hazardous waste, a PRU, and or perhaps the contents and the propellant exhibit a characteristic. Okay,